Hello and welcome back to the channel. It is October. I have another Q&A video for you, and I just want to say thanks to everyone who's left me questions and comments from the last Q&A that I did. I'm planning to do this once a month, so thanks so much again for doing that. I've got a list of questions here that I'm going to do my best to answer. If for some reason I leave off the full answer, or you want to clarify, please leave me a comment or a question below, and I'll either answer it in the comments or I'll save that question for the next time. So I hope everyone is doing well, and I'm going to start. I'm going to read the first question here. The other thing too is that if you have a YouTube channel and you've asked a question, I'm going to link your channel below here. So the first one is from Lauren, from Lauren's Collection, and I mentioned this before. Lauren has a great channel. If you haven't seen her channel before, I will link it in the description below. But she has an amazing collection. First of all, she does unboxing videos. She has a great horror collection, a Doctor Who collection. So if you haven't checked out her channel, I highly recommend doing that. So she says, you have an amazing collection as I've seen through watching your videos. So I have a hard question for you here. Can you narrow down your top 10 favorite films that Criterion has ever released and why you like them so much? So this is a really hard question, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to answer it fully. I am planning to do maybe a top 10 at some point on Criterion, but I pulled a few titles that I absolutely love, and it's less than 10. Favorites list is really tough, or top 10 lists are really, really tough, because I love the Criterion collection so much. I have just a little over 200 Criterion films, and it's really hard to pick a favorite. I like them all for various reasons, and that's why I've purchased them. But I will show a couple that that would be up at the top of that list, and then hopefully at some point, Lauren. And again, for anyone watching here, I will put together a top 10 list of my favorite Criterion movies that I have, because obviously I have a lot less than the full Criterion collection. So I'll put that on my list for a video to make. So the first one I'm going to show you is this one, Certain Women by Kelly Reichardt. I've talked about Kelly Reichardt many times in the past. She's absolutely one of my favorite directors, and Certain Women is an amazing film. I just love her style. I love her approach to filmmaking. She bases a lot of her films on work with an author that she works with regularly. So Certain Women is great. It is in the Criterion collection. It is spine number 893. Highly recommend this film. It's at the top of my list for sure. And then another film from Kelly Reichardt too is Old Joy, which I've talked about on the channel too. And this is it right here. Almost forgot I had it right on. So here's Old Joy. This one recently came out. So to spine number 1008, there's the front and the back of that. Very independent film. I love independent films. I love quieter films. This film is very quiet, very contemplative, and it's one of my favorites at the top of the list. The next one from the Criterion collection that is absolutely at the top of my list is Klute. You know from watching the channel too that I love the 70s, and this is a great movie from the 70s, Alan J. Pakula. So many great things about this film. I've talked about Klute before, but if you don't have this and you really enjoy 70s films, this is great. This is part of what they call the Paranoid trilogy, with Parallax View and All the President's Men, and it is an amazing film. Highly recommend picking it up if you get a chance. So those are four. Oh, there's one more here also. Notorious. Alfred Hitchcock's Notorious. Now, Alfred Hitchcock is well represented in the Criterion collection, but this is one of my favorites. But there's also 39 Steps and many others. The Lodger is one of his silent films. Rebecca also, and many others. So if you like Alfred Hitchcock, I highly recommend picking up a Criterion collection edition of any of his films, because they're all really good. And so I think maybe I mentioned this before, but the reason that I like Criterion Collection, one of the reasons I like Criterion Collection, is for the extra features. So I think as part of Lauren's question here, the reason I like them so much is because I really like to get into the film, really understand it, watch the extra features as much as I can, either before watching the film just to get an understanding of what I'm going to see, or after the film if I'm familiar with the movie. So hope that answers your question, but if you want to clarify in the comments below or ask another question, I'd be happy to have a follow-up on that one. The next question comes from Dan and his question is, well, he's got a couple questions here, but one is, do you have any memorable moments or films that you saw in the theater? Now, I've talked about this before. One of my favorite moments in the theater was seeing Jaws for the first time in 1975. It really shaped my movie watching habits, I think, over the years. Classic film from 1970 or from the 70s. I saw the film with my family, and I saw it multiple times over the summer of 1975. Love the film. It's one of my absolute favorite movies. And so here's I think I'm talking about this a little bit later too, but here's the 4K of that. And as you know from watching the channel, I have a Jaws collection video here that I've done, and it's one of my favorites. I watch this movie 2 or 3 times a year at least, and it's one of my favorite memories. So I hope that answers your question there. That's one of my most memorable moments. Of course, we can't go to the theater right now, or at least it's in limited capacity, and I'm really not going to the theater at this point, just screening things at home. So the next question is, with Halloween approaching, do you have an underrated horror thriller that you love telling people about? And the one that I've chosen, I've talked about too before, It Follows. This is one of my favorite horror movies. It's a pretty recent film as well, and I love watching. I watch this every year. I think it's really because of the cinematography and the style of the movie, the colors in the movie, so many things like that. I think it's pretty underrated. I don't know that a lot of people are talking about this movie, and I really like it. So this is one I would highly recommend. If you haven't seen it, watch it. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Okay, the next one from Dan is there a holy grail or white whale for DVD Blu-ray collecting that you really want in your collection? He says, for me, there's a couple of out-of-print Criterions that I would love to own. And so now this can vary over time. Things go out of print all the time too, but the one I've really been searching for is a movie called Diary of a Country Priest from 1951. It's a Robert Bresson film, and it's out of print. And so you can find it on eBay, but it's very expensive. And I would love to see Criterion Collection bring this movie back and release it on Blu-ray. And maybe they will. So I'm going to wait for that one. I don't usually spend a lot of money on out-of-print titles unless I really absolutely have to have it. But I rarely, would do that. I'm going to wait to see if a label picks it up and decides to put it out again. The other one is Dawn of the Dead from 1978. I know there's a re-release of this happening. Maybe I had a copy of it years ago on VHS or something, and I don't have it anymore. I'd love to get a new copy of it, but I don't want to necessarily pay a lot of money for it or search on eBay for it and pay an extremely large amount of money for it. So that's another one that I'd love to have in my collection that I remember seeing back in the 70s and really liking. And I have Night of the Living Dead, which is a Criterion Collection release from George Romero. So I would love to get. So those are the 2 films, but this changes all the time. For film lovers out there too, you know that your white whale changes. Sometimes you pick up a title and then you're looking for something else. But those are the 2 that I could think of right off the top of my head. And again, I know that Dawn of the Dead is out there. I'm just not ready to pick that up for the price that it's at right now. Okay, from Vanessa. So Vanessa and I have done a live video before. She has a great blog, which I will link in the description below. She says that is there an extremely popular and or well-loved film that you never ended up connecting with personally or enjoyed watching? Now, this is going to be a really tough one, but feel free to leave me comments below. I know this might be really tough for some of you, but this is the film that I've had some trouble connecting with, Lord of the Rings, the trilogy. I'm not really sure why. I know it's great. Everyone says it's great. This happens to be the 3-film collection, so I picked this up to specifically try to rewatch this if I can. And I'm sure I read the books when I was in high school, and I tried to see the movie in the theater when it came out, and I just wasn't really connecting to it. So I've got it here. I'm going to watch it. I know there's a lot of people probably that love these movies, but I just, for whatever reason, couldn't connect to it. And as I've said before a few times on the channel, sometimes for me, watching a film is just about mood and the time in my life, the time of the year. So I'm hoping to reconnect to it. I'm very open to connecting to these films maybe that I haven't had a chance to connect to in the past. So Lord of the Rings is on my radar, and again, it might be disappointing for some of you to hear, but those are the films that I've really tried to watch and I can't seem to connect to for some reason. So Vanessa, I hope that answers your question. And moving on to the next question from Old School, I have a question for the next Q&A. If you had to choose, what would you say is your favorite guilty film pleasure, something off the radar that you find yourself coming back to time and time again? I have 3 of these, and I wouldn't really call it a guilty pleasure. I don't really feel guilty about it. Everybody calls it a guilty pleasure, but for me, I love these films, so I don't feel bad about it, I guess is my point there. So I'm going to show those, and the first one is this movie, American Splendor, and I just love this movie for whatever reason. I think it's because of Paul Giamatti and the subject matter about Harvey Pekar and his relationship with Robert Crumb. This is a great film. I probably watch this film 2 or 3 times a year for whatever reason. I just love the film. Harvey Pekar is in this movie also, so it's kind of a pseudo documentary along with Paul Giamatti's performance, and I just love this film. And it's sealed because I have a few copies of it, and I also have, and I usually watch it on demand. I think if you haven't seen this film before, I believe it's on Amazon, and you can watch it if you have Amazon Prime. So this movie is a favorite of mine, and I will watch it regularly. The next one is one that my wife and I watch quite a bit, Little Miss Sunshine. Little Miss Sunshine. And starring Steve Carell and Greg Kinnear and Toni Collette, Paul Dano, Alan Arkin is just amazing in this movie. For whatever reason, this movie, I just love this movie, and it's kind of a serious, it's kind of a comedy drama, I suppose. So there's some very funny moments in it and some very serious moments in it, and I just love the film. And again, I probably watch this 2 or 3 times a year. And if I'm looking for a laugh or I'm looking for just an interesting film to watch, I will put this one on. And the last one is a movie that I've loved also since the 70s called The Goodbye Girl with Richard Dreyfuss and Marsha Mason. I love this film. I absolutely love Neil Simon, and so again, I'm not calling it a guilty pleasure, but this is a romance comedy film from the 70s, and it's one of my absolute favorites. If I'm feeling down or if I feel like I really need to watch a romance and look at a movie that's very positive and interesting, I'll put this on. So The Goodbye Girl is another one that, again, not a guilty pleasure, but a total pleasure for me to watch. Okay, Joshua mentions if I haven't answered it before, if you haven't answered it before, I'd be curious if you have any favorite movies that you love but which are not well regarded. And I would say that I've already talked about it a little bit, but American Splendor is that movie. I'm not sure that it's very well regarded, and so and this is kind of a guilty pleasure question as well. So that's the movie that I would say is maybe not well known or well regarded, but it's one of my favorites. From Patrick, I do have a question. You mentioned that you would not watch the colorized version of Miracle on 34th Street. Is it because you prefer just to see the original version the way it was supposed to be seen? I ask this because I have seen It's a Wonderful Life in color and gave it a new life, a new way of seeing things that I have not noticed before. Mind you, the coloring was done very well. So the films here that we're talking about is this movie, which I have on DVD, Miracle on 34th Street, one of my favorite holiday movies. And there's the front and the back of that. And this is a 2-disc version, which has the black and white version and the colorized version. And then It's a Wonderful Life, which I don't have the 4K of this one. I have the Blu-ray of this one, which also has the colorized version. I will say I'm open to seeing the colorized version of these movies. I just prefer to watch a movie as it was originally intended to be made. And so colorization is not something that I was necessarily interested in, but I do love your comment in that I feel like I would watch the colorized version just to see if I see anything new in it. But I love the look of black and white, the fact that you feel like something different is happening than your real life, which is, I think, one of the reasons why people love black and white movies. Is it because it's very clearly separate from your life, right? It looks completely different. The shadows are different, things like that. So my preference is to watch it in the original the way that it was originally created. Now, some people don't like to watch black and white films. I understand that, but I pretty much resisted colorized versions of movies for that reason. But I will give it a chance. I will, since these have colorized versions. And I think I put on the colorized version at least of Miracle on 34th Street, but I couldn't connect to it because I'm used to the black and white version of the movie. And I generally don't like when movies are altered in a way just to maybe make the audience more comfortable with things. I like to see the film in its original format. So that's a long answer, but I am open to it, and I will take a look at it that way. And the final question here is, do you use a program to organize or keep track of what you have in your collection, and what is it? Now, I use Letterboxd, and there's a link on the header for my YouTube channel, so if you want to follow me there, I'm pretty much going through the movies I'm watching every single day there, and I'm logging them. I don't typically do reviews. Someone had asked me before too if I look at reviews. That's one of the places I might look at a review if I haven't seen a movie, or if I'm watching a movie just to see what people are, just to see the review or what people are thinking about the movie. But I rarely look at reviews unless I've seen the movie and want to see what other people think of it, or if it's a new movie, I also may want to see what viewers are thinking about it. But in general, I'm going to watch a movie because I want to watch it, not because of the reviews. So again, that's where I have an account there, and there's a link on my header for my YouTube channel, and so you can feel free to follow me on there. And other than listing out detailed reviews, I just have a listing of everything that I'm watching. So those are the questions for October. I really like this feature in this format. So if you have other questions for me for next month, let me know in the comments below. Feel free to clarify anything that maybe I didn't answer fully, and I'm happy to answer it in the comments below, or I will add your question for next month and follow up on it. But I really enjoy this. I really appreciate all the comments and questions. If you like this video, click on like. If you want to see more of these, let me know. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. That would be great. I sincerely hope that everyone is safe and well, and I'll talk to you soon.